It didn't happen with yelling. There was no storm out, no broken dishes, no cameras darting to catch the next eruption. Jasmine's betrayal showed up quietly, inside an email sent from someone she thought she'd marry. A $70,000 civil claim. Gino Palazzolo, the man the world had watched her cry over, laugh with, and fight for, was now accusing her of defamation, confidential breach, and leaking behind-the-scenes dirt from 90 Day Fiancé. No warning, no conversation, just legal jargon. And suddenly, everything Jasmine had built in America collapsed with the click of a send button. Welcome to TLC Drama Files. I'm Oliva. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this is only the beginning. And if you think TLC was telling the full truth about Jasmine and Gino, think again. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this betrayal strategic or was it fear? Back in early 2023, Jasmine wasn't just another 90-day cast member trying to stretch 15 minutes. She was the show. She was the algorithm. Every teaser, every promo clip, every dramatic thumbnail seemed to orbit around her rising voice or emotional breakdown. And what most people didn't know is, Jasmine knew exactly how she was being used. She wasn't blind to how producers amplified the chaos. She was just trying to survive it long enough to make it worth it. But things had shifted off camera. By the time word of the lawsuit hit her inbox, Jasmine was teetering. Her fiancé visa, tied to Gino, was on life support. People saw the drama but not the dread. She had no work permit, no safety net. Online trolls fed on her every move, twisting the narrative to fit whatever made better headlines. And the one person she believed would defend her, the man who once promised to protect her from all the hate, had chosen to lawyer up instead. Wow. Lawsuit didn't just accuse her of sharing private production details. It accused her of damaging a billion-dollar show's reputation during its most fragile time. According to producers, she went rogue. According to her, she was finally telling the truth. Screenshots of confidential cast texts and payment breakdowns had made their way into private fan groups, messages that looked a lot like Jasmine's typing. But instead of asking her why, TLC passed the ball to Gino, and he didn't drop it. He signed the papers. The moment she opened that email, her entire American dream shattered like glass. But it wasn't even the worst part, because inside that betrayal were fingerprints. Not just Gino's, but people higher up. People who once begged her to cry harder and give us one more meltdown, now labeling her unstable and toxic to the brand. This wasn't a random breakup. It looked more and more like a calculated distancing, a project kill switch, and Jasmine, whether the villain or the victim, was no longer listed in the show's next chapter. But it still doesn't answer why. Why did Gino turn his back so fast? What was he offered? And who else knew this was coming? Gino didn't rage. He didn't defend. He didn't even explain himself. After filing the lawsuit, he went quiet. Eerily quiet. Shortly after Jasmine's world blew up, Gino scrubbed his captions, turned off comments, and vanished behind staged grins and sponsored silence. No accountability, no confrontation, not even a hint of regret. And that's when things started to get suspicious. Because the man who once sobbed on camera about losing Jasmine was suddenly doing everything the network wanted without a word. Behind the scenes, insiders say the pressure was suffocating. Gino was allegedly warned by TLC's legal team that if he didn't formally sever ties with Jasmine, his own contract could get flagged. One production source claimed execs feared she'd go rogue, and if Gino didn't help manage the explosion, he could get burned with her. According to that same insider, Gino wasn't given much of a choice. Cooperate, or you're done too. And just like that, the man who used to text her, "You and me against the world," was now standing with the lawyers trying to erase her. But what spooked him? Was it really about contract compliance? Or was there more? Around that time, rumors started floating through fan forums about a spin-off, Gino's New Beginning. A working title leaked anonymously on Reddit, supposedly featuring Gino navigating single life after the heartbreaking collapse of a toxic relationship. Nothing was confirmed, but TLC's silence? Loud. Add to that budget reallocations, allegedly tied to new male-led narratives, and whispers of performance bonuses for clean exits, and you get a show quietly rebranding itself, fast and without Jasmine. Meanwhile, Jasmine was unraveling. Not on camera. Not through filters. In real life, she couldn't understand it. The man who knew how terrified she was of being alone with no visa, who once held her while she sobbed over losing trust in producers, now part of the team painting her as a liability. She thought they'd made it through the worst. She thought the show had twisted them enough, and they might finally get to live as a real couple. Instead, he pressed delete on everything. A former PA from their season recalled a tense post-shoot meeting where execs openly discussed Jasmine as a story risk. Not because she wasn't popular, but because she wouldn't follow the script anymore. One allegedly said she was becoming too hard to direct. There were notes filed about her emotional state, her resistance to certain scenes, even her refusal to wear makeup in later episodes. That's when editing patterns started changing. Scenes were chopped mid-argument. Whole positive moments disappeared. Jasmine wasn't being portrayed as fiery anymore. She was being edited out. Period. Social media noticed. Fan pages started asking where Jasmine was in new promos. Her nickname, Ratings Queen, slowly started disappearing from trending tags. Gino's posts, once flooded with hate, were now weirdly quiet. Like someone had flipped a switch. Did Gino choose self-preservation, or was he promised something bigger once Jasmine was gone? Either way, the timing was surgical. Gino distanced himself, TLC wiped her from the roster, and Jasmine, now jobless, loveless, and legally trapped, started to spiral. But what no one realized? While TLC tried to spin their exit strategy, Jasmine was spiraling in real time. And someone close to her was allegedly capturing every second of it. It was supposed to be a reconciliation scene. Producers had the mic packs ready, lights balanced just right, cameras locked in, and tension thick in the air. Gino and Jasmine, fresh off another off-camera blowout, were about to have the conversation fans had been waiting for. But what happened in that room? What the crew allegedly witnessed that day? It wasn't reality TV gold. It was a breakdown in real time. A member of the sound crew later told a fan blogger, "It stopped being a scene and started feeling like we were eavesdropping on something that shouldn't be recorded." Jasmine walked in already on edge, her eyes puffy, voice hoarse, like she'd been crying all night. Gino sat opposite her, arms crossed, radiating indifference. Jasmine began venting about money, how she wasn't being paid what she was promised, how all her kindness was cut out of edits, and how she felt sold out by someone she trusted. Gino kept dodging, trying to stay neutral. That's when she snapped. Not violently, not abusively, emotionally. She wasn't screaming to start drama. She was hurting. And the more she cried, the more silent Gino became. "He lied about everything," she said, according to leaked transcripts circulating fan threads. About the money, about the texts, about defending me. When producers tried to intervene and redirect the mood, she pointed at one of them and allegedly shouted, "You told me to fight. You told me to slap the drama on my face like makeup. Now you want me calm?" That scene never aired. Crew members said the footage was promptly flagged. Internal emails started circulating days later. One producer allegedly wrote, "We need to reassess how we're handling Jasmine's arc." Another higher-up reportedly replied, "If she's unstable, she's not usable. Start rewriting the next phase without her." That meeting, producers now call it the final flag. The scene was messy. But instead of exploring why, a woman who was once giving them ratings gold now seemed unhinged, they chose containment. Not care, not clarification, just editing her out, quietly and completely. And while it may have looked chaotic to anyone watching raw footage, those present say the real story was far more human. Jasmine felt trapped. Financially, emotionally, legally. Her role was her only paycheck. Her visa relied on her partner. Her reputation? Now cherry-picked into bite-sized drama for a series she no longer controlled. Gino, who once met every outburst with coddling and baby talk, became a statue. His silence in that moment didn't feel calming, it felt calculated. And after that incident, things moved fast. Lawyers started watching footage closer. Jasmine was asked to revise prior interviews. Suddenly, former arguments were replayed in editing suites like surveillance tapes with one goal in mind: evidence of instability, of aggression, of breach of expectation. That fight, off-script, off-brand, too real, wasn't just the end of their on-screen relationship. It became the foundation for everything that came next, including the claim that she was a liability, a threat, an asset past her expiration date. They filmed her mental spiral for ratings, then tried to erase her from the story altogether. And once production locked in that narrative, legal cleanup wasn't far behind. Only now, this wasn't about episode runtimes or ratings. Someone picked up the phone. Not for PR, not for script notes, but for immigration. It started with a knock. Cold, calculated, procedural. No sirens, no squad cars blocking the street. Just two officers at a plain apartment door in Michigan, where Jasmine had once imagined building a life. According to leaked emails and online chatter from fan blogs, TLC had already flagged her legal exposure after the lawsuit. But what pushed it over the edge was a domestic disturbance report. One argument too many, one off-script moment too real, and suddenly, Jasmine wasn't booked for a crime, but escorted out like one. Neighbors said the hallway went dead silent. No screaming, no resisting, just Jasmine sobbing into the sleeve of a jacket she didn't even grab on the way down. One eyewitness claims she kept repeating, "You all used me. You all ruined me." The footage never aired. But grainy clips began popping up on Instagram within minutes. In one, a woman with long dark hair is seen being walked toward a car, trembling. TLC moved fast, issuing takedowns, threatening fan accounts with copyright strikes. But damage moves faster than control. This wasn't an arrest in the criminal sense. It was a detainment. Her fiancé visa, already in question after Gino effectively withdrew sponsorship by filing the lawsuit, had reportedly triggered a status review. The moment her relationship shifted from romantic to legal dispute, she was no longer protected. A non-citizen without a valid work permit, now tangled in civil litigation, is a technical red flag in immigration systems. Cold rules. No context. Within 48 hours, she was released. Technically free. Emotionally demolished. Jasmine wasn't just holding a suitcase full of clothes and fear. She was holding the unraveling of a future she thought was already painful enough. According to contacts close to her in Panama, she refused to eat for days after. One friend said she sat in a dark room for hours, scrolling through old videos of her and Gino, not the edited arguments. The raw phone footage, the birthday wishes, the airport scenes, the tiny, normal moments that no longer existed outside her memory. TLC, for their part, issued nothing but silence. No comment. No statement. No compassion. Internally, leaked correspondence between producers reveals a stark response. One executive was quoted saying, "If she's out, we spin it as her choice. Don't feed the drama, keep it clean." Emails also allegedly discussed NDA reinforcement. Jasmine was reminded she couldn't speak publicly, on any platform, about anything involving the network without incurring steep penalties. They gave her what insiders called a shut-up payout, not tens of thousands, not even 5 figures. A reported $4,000 termination fee. For 2 years of emotional labor and a public breakdown watched by millions. She wasn't arrested for a crime. She was detained because she was no longer useful to the story. But Jasmine didn't disappear. Not yet. While her Instagram went dark and public contact ceased, people close to her say she was working behind the scenes, writing, recording, documenting everything she couldn't say out loud. Yet, because Jasmine knew they wanted her gone, what they didn't know, she was preparing to speak one last time. And this time, no producer could edit the ending. The first recording didn't get leaked by accident. It landed in a Dropbox link sent anonymously to a small fan-run blog, buried in a folder titled Final Proof. Inside were voice memos, shaky, breathless, raw. No music, no filters. Just Jasmine crying into her phone, whispering words that sounded like they were never meant to be heard by anyone except herself. In one clip, her voice trembles. "They took everything. The show, the man, my home. I was loyal to Gino, and he sold me. He sold me for a contract." She stops. A long pause. Then, "Was any of it real?" The voice is unmistakably hers. Not the booming Jasmine we saw in hotel hallway fights or kitchen meltdowns. This Jasmine is exhausted and terrifyingly quiet. She sounds like someone trying not to wake up their own grief. In another memo, she seems to be talking to a producer, or maybe just herself. "You told me to fight. You told me to scream. Now you say I'm unstable." The sound cuts in and out like she's pacing. You can hear her anger, but it burns slow, not loud. These recordings couldn't be confirmed officially, but fans knew. This wasn't AI or fan fiction. This came from someone who felt discarded and didn't want to leave empty-handed. Because while Jasmine was losing paid appearances, sponsorships, and her visa, she was building something else, her private defense. Friends from Panama spoke to online outlets and hinted at it, a thing they call her Panama Diary. Not a literal diary, but a collection of audio clips, WhatsApp messages, and smartphone videos she'd saved before being forced offline. Some were diary-style rants. Others reportedly included names, timelines, and screenshots. One fan account claimed Jasmine stored it all in a hidden Google Drive, accessible only to 2 trusted people. This wasn't revenge. This was insurance. And what makes this whole situation even darker? When you listen to those recordings or read the transcripts being shared online, you don't hear someone trying to be famous. You hear someone trying to figure out why the world turned on her for being real while everyone else played along. She wasn't the villain 90 Day Fiancé portrayed her to be. She was the one being told where to stand, when to cry, what to say, and when she finally stopped saying it, they rewrote her as unstable. She wasn't loved for her personality. She was chosen for her volatility, and when that volatility became inconvenient, she was erased. She whispered into a recorder because it was the only thing left that wouldn't talk over her. But the recordings weren't her final play. Jasmine still had one unresolved piece of the puzzle, Gino, and no Dropbox link could close that wound. Because weeks after her deportation, in a cafe far from the cameras, Jasmine met with him one last time. Not for closure, for something else. She had already lost her visa, her screen time, her name in the credits. But this time, Gino wasn't coming with love. He was coming with paperwork. And one offer that would test whether Jasmine could be paid: to stay silent forever. The table was in the corner, half shaded under a rusted aluminum awning, tucked far enough back that no one would notice them, unless they knew who to look for. Drab blue polo, familiar baseball cap, Gino, and across from him, hair pulled back, dark glasses on, arms locked across her chest like she was holding herself together, Jasmine. And the people in that Panamanian cafe knew who they were watching. It wasn't a romantic reunion. No teary hugs, no smiles. Witnesses said the air was frozen, stiff. They didn't speak at first. He arrived before her, nervously checking his phone, not touching his drink. When she finally sat down, one staffer swore she didn't even wave hello, just sat down, back straight, like she was in court, not a coffee shop. This wasn't a last plea to fix what broke between them. It was paperwork. According to someone sitting 2 tables away, Gino pulled out a folder midway through their meeting. Not dramatic, quiet, like he'd rehearsed it. Inside, allegedly NDAs, more of them. A follow-up legal agreement that, in exchange for a one-time payout, would permanently bar Jasmine from speaking on camera, online, or through third parties about her experience with the show, or with him. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't even reach for the folder. "You already took everything," one source quoted her as saying, her voice low, cracked. "I don't want your money. I want my voice back." Others said she was crying, shoulders stiff, eyes unblinking. She didn't yell. She didn't cause a scene. But one point in the conversation turned. Her hand slammed the table, not in rage, but in finality. "You'll never understand what you did to me," she said, visibly holding back tears. "Because you weren't the one being edited." She didn't want another contract, another edit, another deception. She wanted her voice back, and that's when it became clear. Jasmine hadn't come for reconciliation. She didn't want love or revenge. She wanted control. After being manufactured, marketed, misrepresented, what she needed now was something no producer could offer: authenticity. Because for Jasmine, the pain wasn't just the breakup. It wasn't even the deportation. It was realizing she'd never been seen for who she really was. Not by the network. Not by most fans. And maybe not even by Gino. She had spent years living as a version of herself shaped by editing rooms, reshot takes, and contracts she could barely understand. Once she left the cafe, one witness said Gino stayed behind for a while, just sitting there, not even pretending to drink his coffee, maybe waiting for her to come back. But she didn't. That meeting was the goodbye. Not between lovers, but between a woman and the script written for her. Back in Panama, Jasmine went quiet again. But not broken. She moved in with relatives for a while. No flashy apartment, no production budget. Just a normal room in a normal home. Locals say she keeps a low profile now, often wearing hats, staying off her phone in public. But those close to her say she's steadily regaining something the show stripped from her: humanity. She's teaching English at a local youth center, volunteering once a week, even started journaling again, not as content, not for fans, but therapy. Some of her entries, friends claim, still mention Gino, but not with anger, more like grief. Not for lost love, but for the future she thought she was building. A life with meaning, identity, family, that ended up as ratings bait. In private messages allegedly sent to a friend, Jasmine wrote, "I was so scared of losing him, I didn't see I was already gone. All that was left was a character with my name." One voice note, never posted publicly but quoted in fan groups, had her saying plainly, "I didn't fall apart because we broke up. I fell apart because they tricked me into being something I'm not." Another message. "I walked away, not because I gave up. I walked away because I finally saw the script was finished. And I didn't write it. This wasn't a meltdown. It was her comeback in slow motion. Now, online supporters, especially in Hispanic fan circles, have started reframing Jasmine's narrative. Not as the crazy girlfriend or jealous Latina trope the show leaned on so heavily, but as a woman forced into a corner and watched by millions while she crumbled against a machine. She wasn't perfect. No one is, but she was real. And reality television, ironically, punished her hardest when she was at her most authentic. The NDA she refused meant she's still legally muzzled for now. But whispers continue. She isn't done. That Google Drive she kept? Reportedly still active. Like a flame under glass, waiting. But there's still one tape out there. One tape that could destroy the house of lies they built. And it's not in the Dropbox. It's not in court. It's not even online yet. It's the final conversation she recorded. Before the airport, before the silence, before TLC tried to delete her entirely. The one piece of evidence that might finally force the truth into the light. And if it leaks, everything changes. It was filmed quietly, away from the usual chaos. No set lights, no dramatic intros. Just Jasmine sitting alone in a room, one lav mic pinned to her sweater, eyes raw from crying. A crew member, one of the few she still trusted, hit record. A handheld camera pointed at her face. No producers feeding her lines. That was the point. It wasn't supposed to be footage for the show. This was her goodbye. According to insiders, this interview took place just days before she boarded that flight out of the US. After the lawsuit, after the arrest, after the cafe meeting with Gino. By then, she wasn't fighting for screen time anymore. She had already lost the show. She'd lost the country she wanted to call home. But what she hadn't lost yet was her story. Sources say Jasmine sat for nearly 40 minutes straight, barely blinking at the camera. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She spoke slowly, deliberately, like she was explaining something to the version of herself she'd never get back. I thought love meant protection, she allegedly said. But in this show, love was a scene. A beat, a hook. Once I stopped hitting those, I was disposable. Crew members who witnessed the taping described her as stone quiet between takes, but laser-focused when speaking. She talked about manipulation, allegedly about being told when to cry, when to fight, when to nod and bite her lip because it would play better. She admitted she'd said and done messy things, but claimed most of it was encouraged, even directed. And when she tried to draw the line, she said they blurred it again. The entire recording, according to multiple sources, was pulled from the post-production queue before it was uploaded for review. It was marked internal only, no distribution. And then, buried allegedly, legal teams swooped in with a new draft of the NDA, one specifically referencing the interview. Jasmine was told if she signed it, her exit could be handled quietly, with dignity. If she didn't, she risked breach penalties, major ones. The result? The footage never aired. Jasmine left the country, and the tape disappeared. When they erased her from the credits, they forgot she still had the receipts, because that footage may still exist. Word inside tight fan circles is that someone kept a duplicate copy, quietly, off the books. Whether it surfaces depends on legal fallout. But that hasn't stopped the rumors, or the fan demand. Some bloggers argue Jasmine knew what she signed up for when she joined 90 Day Fiancé, that she benefited from the chaos while it served her and only pushed back when it no longer worked. And they're partly right. She did agree to be filmed, to be edited, to be part of a reality machine that profits off tension and breakdowns. But here's the thing. Does consent to fame mean consent to destruction? To silence? To deportation? That's the real question. Was Jasmine the problem, or was she the product? The show cast her for being intense, emotional, unpredictable, and then punished her for being exactly that. They used her tears in trailers, her jealousy in thumbnails, her vulnerability in recaps. But when viewers started demanding mental health support or asking, is she okay? TLC backed away. They turned up the chaos when it boosted clicks, then turned off the mic when things got real. And the more fans rewatch old episodes, the more they start to catch it. Subtle editing patterns, recycled reactions, scenes that didn't match the audio, whole chunks of her story missing. Like they weren't just controlling the narrative, they were rewriting it. In one of Jasmine's private leaked messages, she allegedly wrote, "I wasn't crazy, I was exhausted." And then they called that entertainment. And still, through all of it, she hasn't burned it all down. She could have dropped everything. Dates, files, names. But she hasn't, yet, because, despite what some might believe, Jasmine hasn't given up on getting closure. She's just finally on her terms now. Fan groups across Reddit, Facebook, and X have exploded with commentary in recent months. The hashtags #WantJusticeForJasmine and *Sarb boycott TLC90 trended briefly before vanishing under suspicious algorithm shifts. Some fans believe TLC quietly works to keep backlash low. Others think Gino's still under contractual gag order, which is why he refuses to address any of it, even now. But there's movement happening behind the scenes. Jasmine is rumored to be working with an overseas journalist to anonymously distribute portions of her diary, but so far, no one's confirmed when or if it'll go public. What we do know, multiple YouTube creators and indie production houses have extended private offers to buy her story outright, the kind of offer that skips TLC entirely. She's been seen attending advocacy events tied to immigrant rights. Nothing major, nothing flashy, but her silence doesn't mean surrender. If anything, it means she's choosing her moment. And maybe, for the first time ever, that moment won't be dictated by a producer's clipboard. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about restoration. Jasmine may have left the country, but the truth? It's still here waiting to explode. We're covering what's next, Gino's spin-off drama, the fan boycott movement, and whether TLC will survive this fallout.